Are you stuck in an abusive relationship with your government? Here are the top 15 signs to find out if you are. Hello everyone, Dr. Chris Martinson here. Very special episode today. You know, we've been talking about the psychology of everything that's been going on in the world lately, and we discussed mass formation or mass formation psychosis, words that triggered a lot of action on some parts of some people after we saw Dr. Robert Malone raise that concept on Joe Rogan, which helped to bring it forward. And of course, we've been talking about that here as well for a number of months. But today, we're going to be talking about if you are stuck in an abusive relationship. And here are the top 15 signs in episode 42. So let's go there. Let's start. I came across this little guide that we're going to be reviewing today, and here it is. This is a very handy chart. 15 things on this graphic that describe if you may be in an abusive relationship. This, of course, applies to an individual or a personal relationship you might have in your home, but we're going to see if this applies at a wider level. So let's start with number one. The number one sign is that your abusive partner stops you from seeing friends and family. I think I hardly have to talk about this one because obviously that's the official response in many cases in many countries was to prevent exactly that, to stop you from having seen your friends or your family, even to the point of seeing grandparents not being able to see their children, or even more to the point we saw people being completely locked out of life with their loved ones, in many cases being kept out of hospital rooms as people were dying. So I think step one, signpost number one, was definitely achieved in this particular case. What's signpost number two? Your abusive partner won't let you go out without permission. Again, I hardly had to reach hard to find examples of this. We see countries that imposed all sorts of lockdowns, even around Omicron, which obviously spreads quickly, but as we've learned, really isn't all that deadly. It's still something to be reckoned with, but it certainly is a very different beast from the earlier ones that we saw. We saw Quebec just throwing more and more new restrictions upon itself on a constant basis. And as well, we saw Trudeau going even further in Canada, saying people who are not fully vaccinated won't be able to travel on domestic planes or trains. So, yeah, you can't go out without permission. So, ding. I think we're going to have to check that box. So, we're 2 for 2 so far. Well, how about number 3? Tells you what to wear. That's a no-brainer. Obviously, that's a biggie. We're seeing mask mandates all over the place. That's a condition of what you can wear. And by the way, for children, no science yet that I've come across that says that this is an important device, except as a signaling device, and also something that potentially will harm your child's social and psychological development as they go forward in time. So absolutely, I think we checked that box. What about signpost number 4? Hey, they monitor your phone or emails. And yeah, that's clearly been happening too, where there's now Bluetooth phone apps for tracking your phone. We've obviously got the coronavirus tracking. We've got all kinds of COVID tracking. We've got vaccine passports. We've got things happening where in certain countries where the proximity of your phone to other phones is setting off alarm bells. So absolutely, number 4, is your phone or emails, all that being monitored? The answer is absolutely yes. How about number 5? Controls the finances or won't let you work. That was an easy one. Obviously, emergency stimulus, they're giving people money around this. That's a controlling thing, because what happens when the emergency stimulus goes away and you've become dependent on it? Or how about this? With the executive order, businesses with 100 employees must require vaccines or weekly tests as a condition of working. That's definitely fairly controlling on the financial front. The CDC issued an eviction moratorium. Never in the history of the country has the CDC been involved in property rights. And so they issued the eviction moratorium, which allowed renters to stay in homes rent-free, but didn't issue a mortgage moratorium that prevented the banks from collecting whatever mortgage money the landowners owned or held in that case, or owed. So that was absolutely very, very controlling and certainly an abuse of power. But nobody, I think, takes the case quite as much as New York City, which is mandating that businesses require New York is requiring businesses to be in the business of assuring that people who attend their places of business they have to check them to ensure that they are in compliance with New York State's mandates and laws, all of which would make a ton of sense if anybody could actually show that those laws or rules had any public health benefit, which they can't. It's a theory at this point. Abusive signs number 6 and number 7, checking in together, controls what you read, watch, and say, and monitors you. What do we got there? All kinds of stuff. Obviously, we saw all these different purges of different groups who were trying to come together and rally around each other's shared symptomology, say in Facebook. A lot of those got purged. Obviously, we saw all the Google, the YouTube, the Twitter purges, things like that. Videos totally unavailable. And Wikipedia got censored. And it did a lot of censoring. So all of these were actually... Can we say these are just private industries anymore that are just doing what they think is in their own best interest? Probably not, given the close association they have with the government around these things. And as well, if you went over to Reddit, you would find, which is just a popular place if you don't know about it, it's a great place to go and form other communities. They're called subreddits, Reddit/r/something. That something is the subreddit. And so we found that... this happened to me, if I had merely visited one of these other subreddits and hadn't done anything except visited it to see what was over there, I would find that my participation in other subreddits was banned. I couldn't post anymore. In some cases, I couldn't access them, things like that. Things like this. You have been permanently banned from participating in this subreddit called Insane People of Facebook. It's kind of a fun subreddit. You've been permanently banned from participating in R pics, just people posting pictures. Because I'd been monitored in what I was doing on that site, and then it had been used to control what I was able to say or not say, because I couldn't participate anymore because I had dared to go to subreddits which were exploring the totality of what's happening and trying to figure out what is going on. So check on both of those. Abusive sign number 8, they'll punish you for breaking the rules, but the rules keep changing. What are we talking about here? All kinds of stuff. This is easy. Obviously, the rules just keep changing all the time. People struggle with the logic behind it here. Haaretz.com struggling with even saying, what is the logic here? Mask tests, travel bans? We don't know. It's a constantly shifting landscape, and it changes all the time. And, of course, you can get in trouble if you fall afoul of these rules, which are changing all the time. How about this? Changing mask rules. What's now required in every New England state? The CDC announced last week down here in yellow that it was recommending fully vaccinated people begin wearing masks indoors, again, in places with high COVID transmission rate. So, okay, I got to live in a place with a high transmission rate. I've had 2 vaccines, but what if I have a booster? Nobody knows. It's very difficult to keep up with all the different rules. In fact, I did find a picture of the new CDC and NIH policy framework. You can see it there. It's hard to capture. It's a nocturnal thing. So getting a picture of it in the daytime like this was really important. Very good. All right, number 9 on this list. Tell you it's for your own good and that they know better. Well, who knows what's better for you and your child than obviously the Quebec Premier? Getting your child vaccinated is for their own good, the Premier tells you. I did not realize the Premier was the personal physician of so many children. That's a big job, being both the Premier and the personal physician of all the children in the province. That's amazing. So Legault, good job. I like what he's up to there. Secondarily, we might notice that they don't allow you to question things. That's abusive sign number 10. You know, you tell you it's for your own good. They know better, and you can't question it. Vaccinated hospital patients outpace the unvaccinated, but it doesn't mean the shots don't work. I love the double negatives. Those are good journalism right there. How do we make sense of this one? Vaccinated hospital patients outpace the unvaccinated, but it doesn't mean the shots don't work. Experts. Don't question it. Just go along. We've given you that. Sign 11. Tell you you're crazy and nobody agrees with you. This is getting us on the road to gaslighting, overt. What would that look like? It might look like something like this. So, you know, we had it's mentioned at the opening of this, the Matthias Desmet interview where we're talking about mass psychosis. Malone goes on Joe Rogan, most downloaded podcast in world history ever with over 50 million views right now, most listened to. And I guess it was only about 2 or 3 minutes in that whole 3-hour interview, which is about mass psychosis. But oh my gosh, a little bit of a response. And it included that the Associated Press and Reuters got together and fact-checked it right away and said there's no evidence of pandemic mass formation psychosis, according to Reuters and the AP, with a very helpful picture of somebody getting a shot. So they fact-checked it right away. And they're telling you right here up front, 2 organizations have teamed up to fact-check this. They've checked in with experts again, and nobody agrees with you. If you think that this in any way defines anything, you're just nuts. And this is part of the overall, this is part of the abuse, right? This is what it looks like. I mean, you should know, this is the hard part about getting in an abusive relationship, having studied it quite a bit. Many times the person in that relationship isn't aware that they're even in one because it starts out pretty innocently and it gets there by slow degrees, the proverbial frog boiling in water where, like, if you just dump that person straight into this moment, if you took somebody from 2018, dropped them here in 2022, they'd probably detect that boiling water real quick and say, this is nuts. I don't even know how we got to the point where fact-checking means pulling in random experts to just disprove anything and using your stamp of authority and saying, that's it, we're all done. It's actually a sign of abuse. And so this is an abuse of their position of authority. Speaking of abuse, obviously, you got to include this guy because he's the master of it as far as I'm concerned. Are you kidding me? Fauci responds to right-wing attack over emails. You're crazy if you happen to question Fauci on his emails. And look at what he wrote. This is from that same article. He said here in yellow, quote, Dr. Anthony Fauci, America's top infectious disease expert, has responded strongly to growing right-wing criticism and conspiracy theories connected to the release of thousands of his emails under FOIA laws. Fauci has blood on his hands. Are you kidding me? Joe Biden's chief medical advisor asked in a frank interview with the New York Times on Monday, here's a guy whose entire life has been devoted to saving lives, and now you're telling me he's like Hitler? You know, come on, folks, get real. That's what he said. He actually went so far as to say those attacking him are criticizing science. So you're crazy if you happen to think there's anything to the release of Fauci's emails, which, by the way, you're crazy. You're crazy if you think there was anything to that, because they were obviously a paragon of openness. We can see here this email that was sent to Fauci that included from Marion Koopmans, the Dutch virologist here, including Christian Drosten, this other virologist, and a few people from the Wellcome Trust, Christian Anderson from Scripps, and that's it. The whole thing has been blanked out under B/3 there. It's just, you're crazy if you think there's if this guy hasn't been completely open. In fact, if you look at this email and you think anything untoward about it, you know what? You're right-wing and you're a conspiracy theorist. How dare you? How dare you think there's anything wrong with this practice right here? And by the way, it's not just us. We saw that sitting congressmen and senators were unable to get that gray part removed from these emails. So that is actually an abusive sign when somebody gaslights you like this, tells you that you're insane or right-wing or a conspiracy nut for daring to think that there's anything other than pure intent behind all those grayed out areas in that particular email. All right, speaking of which, we got right there, number 12, they call you names or they shame you for being stupid or selfish. Once again, this isn't hard to find out. Opinion piece in the New York Times recently declared, I'm furious at the unvaccinated. Charles Blow says this, I will not coddle willful ignorance anymore. Willful ignorance. You are willfully ignorant if you disagree with this gentleman. How about this? Call it straight up. Selfish or unpatriotic. Despite the fact that we know that there is a wide range of opinions, data, science around this particular topic. That's coming out more and more, but obviously this is part of a program that wasn't designed to say, let's have a conversation. Let's have an open conversation like adults, and let's both progress our understandings of this particular situation. These are shaming and abusive tactics. This is classic abuser behavior. So let's just be absolutely clear about that. That's what it is. We could go further and say, Hey, we've heard about the pandemic of the unvaccinated with President Biden saying we have a pandemic because of the unvaccinated, and they are sowing enormous confusion. Actually, I think it's not necessarily the unvaccinated sowing the enormous confusion. It's the fact that our data and our policies themselves are sowing enormous confusion because, as we know, people who are vaccinated can still catch and transmit the virus. And in fact, when it comes to Omicron, and I understand Biden made these comments back in July 28th here, but with Omicron, we now know that it is actually the double jabbed, formerly fully vaccinated, who are most at risk from catching and transmitting this particular virus at this point in time. And how about this one? Number 12 still. Call you names, shame you for being stupid or selfish. CNN's Don Lemon, as some say, or Don Lemon, calls on Americans to shun stupid unvaccinated people, leave them behind. Now, obviously, there's a lot of nuance in this particular story and debate, and there's a lot of reasons why people have certain opinions about whether or not vaccination is correct for them, obviously, but not Don Lemon. He's going to take you down this path and create division and say there's Americans, because he's calling on Americans. See what he's doing there? To shun stupid unvaccinated people. So there's two classes, Americans and stupid unvaccinated people. Leave them behind. I consider this highly irresponsible language for anybody, but particularly somebody who's got a seat of authority or power or broadcast ability. Don, not so good here. At any rate, this clearly is a program of shaming, and that has been a popular program by those in seats of authority, power, and also publicity who want to create a certain outcome. They've been trying to use shame to get people there. Quick tip. Shaming is a really bad way to try and get somebody to do what you want them to do. A lot of people seem unaware of that, but it's actually not that effective. There's much more effective ways, like being persuasive or influential or having access to complete information where you can really carry the argument forward. I think abusive sign number 12 is met. We're going to check that box. How about this one? Gaslight you. This is number 13, and make you doubt yourself. So gaslighting is that term, comes from that movie where way back, the old black and white movie, where actual gaslights were being turned on and being turned off. And the characters in the movie, the husband was using it to convince the wife she was crazy because the lights she thought they were on, and then he would turn them off, and he used the gaslights as on-off program to convince her that she was losing her mind, and she did in the movie. So that's what gaslighting is telling you one thing and then another and telling you that you must be misremembering things. All right, from today, you could actually, I pulled both of these articles today, so you can find today on the HHS website up there the statement that vaccines protect your community. They say here, quote, "Did you know that when you get vaccinated, you're protecting yourself and your community?" This is a concept called community immunity and or herd immunity. It's an important reason for you to get your family vaccinated so you can help keep yourselves and your community healthy. But you can also read that we now know, and this article comes actually from October of 2021, so plenty of time to update that HHS website if we wanted to, that we found out vaccinated people also spread the Delta variant, year-long study shows. So we know that people who are fully vaccinated are capable of spreading this thing. What is this vaccines protect your community piece? Can I ask a question about that? This is classic. How could you not doubt yourself? How do you make sense of both of those headlines? They can't really both be true, can they? It's crazy making. And some would say that's actually the point of all of this. And by the way, no less than Fauci himself said unvaccinated Americans are propagating this outbreak as Delta spreads. At the same time, we also know that vaccinated people spread the Delta variant. We know both of these things. So this is crazy making. This is actually a textbook definition of gaslighting, which is I'm telling you that if you're not vaccinated, you are spreading this Delta variant. Oh yeah, you can totally spread it if you're vaccinated. You can't make sense of that. That's just not possible. So abusive sign 13, check, we're there. How about this one? Number 14, dismiss your opinions. Well, I thought I'd drag this back up. We should talk about this one last time. On February 4th, 2020, result was delete my Wikipedia page. Why did that happen? Because in yellow, I was a non-notable individual. I'd been declared non-notable. A handful of reasons, including that I hadn't had any science papers since the 90s, make them a big fail. Two, also a conspiracy theorist, apparently. And sources listed are unreliable, straight up, blah, 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 blah. So this is all character assassination. I was completely dismissed. And this was after I'd only been talking about the coronavirus, which at that point was not even called COVID. I'd only been talking about it a couple of weeks, and I got dismissed instantly. Because, why? Well, because I was saying the WHO was supposed to be calling this a pandemic, and they hadn't, and I was saying bad things about them. So big fat fail for Wikipedia. Have not used them or trusted them in a long time in this capacity. I think they're great for some things, but not when it comes to people, politics, and they're openly involved in character assassination in advancing certain agendas and narratives. So that's just how they are. But by the way, lots of people had their opinions dismissed. Look at this one in the Houston Press, the real dangers in the false COVID remedy promoters like Brett Weinstein. He got dragged through this enormously. Obviously, somebody with incredible integrity and courage to stand up despite the costs, faced all kinds of censorship and deplatforming and demonetization and lots of bad press for daring to say, hey, I have some questions. I think we should discuss them openly. And how about this guy, one of my favorite guys in the whole world, YouTube cancels the U.S. Senate. Ron Johnson wrote this, but he was talking about the Pierre Corey Senate testimony where one of the preeminent ICU critical care doctors in the world was speaking about his personal experience and what worked and what didn't work in a hospitalized setting, in an intensive care setting for COVID patients. Obviously, a very strong voice of authority and reason. And he got canceled and continues to face all sorts of cancellation because not holding the correct view that the main narrative wants to have. So that's abusive sign number 14, is that when you find that you are dismissed in your opinions, despite having the most ridiculously awesome credentials you could possibly have, you might be in an abusive relationship. And it all terminates here. Abusive sign number 15, last in the list, play the victim and blame you if things go wrong. That would never happen, would it? Well, it did in the Connecticut Post as recently as December of 2021. Let's blame the unvaccinated. Yeah, we could do that. Or how about this? A widow, unvaccinated, to blame for vaccinated Iowa man's death. But if the vaccine didn't prevent your husband from dying and it doesn't prevent people from transmitting it, how would another vaccinated person have helped the situation? And how would you even know if it was an unvaccinated person your husband got this from? Who knows? Doesn't matter. The blame game is afoot, and it's okay to make this sort of a blame game. The press will be totally happy to help you and carry that forward because they are part of the abuse cycle. How about this one? Biden says unvaccinated Americans are costing all of us. Let's not just pick on Biden. Lots of world leaders saying the same sort of thing. Macron declares his COVID strategy is to piss off the unvaccinated. That is, make their lives miserable and intolerable to the point where they give in. That is, you abuse them enough, they'll eventually comply. Trudeau calls unvaccinated racist and misogynist, just trying to stick anything he possibly can onto them. But these are all world leaders. Leader of France, leader of Canada, leader of the United States. I have other examples where we see the same behavior. This is not the behavior of people who are using the power of their station in life to convince and be persuasive and use best available facts. What they're mad about is that people didn't comply. That's what pisses them off. They're angry. But oftentimes you find that abusers resort to anger as one of their first fallbacks because they are legitimately angry that people didn't comply with them. I told you to do that. It didn't happen. Doesn't matter that it was nonsensical or I can't back it up or it wasn't best for me. None of that's relevant. What matters is that you didn't behave and you did not do exactly what they said when they said it. So put it in all one spot here. Here we have the 15 signs of an abusive relationship. I've typed them all out there for you. So if you want to take a screenshot, this is the one. If you can map these examples I gave and many, many others into this, you might be in an abusive relationship, not a healthy one, not a constructive one, not a nurturing one, not one that you would actively choose if given the choice. And so that's where we get to in this story. What can you do about this? It's literally the same as being in any individual abusive relationship. Your options include leave. Those are your options. Leave. How you get out of them? First, let me get my drawing tool out finally because I haven't needed it up to this point. If you're being abused, please remember this. You are not to blame for anything that's happening. You're not to blame. It's not yours. Don't take on any of the blame for this, please. Second, you're not the cause of the abusive behavior. It wasn't because you didn't do something or say something or you didn't comply quite enough. There was no way out of this. People who get stuck in abusive relationships discover that it wasn't about them in the first place, that the people doing the abusing bring those characteristics to the relationship, apply them to that relationship, and usually apply them to somebody else next after that relationship. The pattern of abuse has to be broken if you want to get out of that. You deserve to be treated with respect. Your opinions count. Yes, you can do your own research and come to a different conclusion from somebody else. That's totally valid and totally okay. If your structural engineer comes into your house and says that 40-foot span on a single 2x4 is fine, you get to disagree and say, no, that doesn't look safe to me. If you don't like the program of treatment that your doctor has prescribed for you, you can go get a second opinion or a third opinion until you find something that comports with what's best for you, given what you know about yourself. It's all fine. You deserve to be treated with that respect. You deserve to have a safe and happy life. Absolutely do. And this includes being free from daily applications of fear. Fear is corrosive. We are being controlled with fear. Fear is often the prime element and weapon of an abuser. I see the media playing along with this. I see a lot of politicians playing along with this, and it's absolutely inappropriate. So you get to say, no, I don't consent to that. I'm not playing with that. I don't want your fear. You can try sell it, but I'm not buying. Your children deserve a safe and happy life. This is absolutely the case. And this is probably one of the greatest tragedies so far of what I've seen unfolding around all of this behavior that's been going forward. It's not about creating a safe and happy life for your children. It's not about creating a safe and happy future for all of us. It's about compliance. It's about authoritarianism. It's about control. None of that's really creating that condition there of having a safe and happy life for your children, for you, for me, for any of us. Finally, you are not alone. You're not alone. We are all in this together. I was just on an extraordinary con call yesterday on Zoom with a bunch of people from Australia with some really amazing names on there. And these are very prominent people who you would see, and that'll all be coming out soon, I hope. And just it was extraordinary because as famous as these people were, they're parents. They're worried about the future. They're colleagues of each other. That we were all in this together, and so we're not alone in this whole thing. And that's really what I want to leave you with, is this idea that you're not alone. We're not alone, and we get to choose what we want to do with all of this and how we want to go forward. So that's it. Those are the 15 signs you might be in an abusive relationship. There they all are again. And if this applies, hey, there's things you can do about it. But step one is recognizing that you're in this kind of a relationship so that you can decide, as a second step, to leave it. Hey, that's all I have for you today. Come back again, and we'll have more for you on this topic and others like this. I hope you liked it. And by the way, for those who are interested, and I know you may be watching this at some point in the future, this might have already passed. If you're watching this in 2096, when the FDA finally gets around to releasing all of its Pfizer safety data, and I'm dead, this doesn't apply. But we are holding a seminar. We hold a seminar every year. We hold a live seminar and a virtual seminar. This is the virtual seminar. We do this so that people from Germany, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, United States, wherever you live, so you can attend. We've got these incredible people speaking down here about all sorts of things related to how you can be happy, healthy, and resilient coming into this next year. And we've got a really special thing going on this year. We're creating digital rooms for people to come and enter and participate with each other for a full week around this seminar. So come on out and check that out if you want, peak2022.events. hey, you can see our landing page for that and find out more about it. But we'd love to see you there. We have hundreds and hundreds of people signed up already, so it's going to be a fabulous event. And if you can't make it to that, or if you want to make it to one in the future years, we hold one every single year. Whenever you're watching this, know that at Peak Prosperity, as long as I'm around, we'll be holding these events because it's critical that we find each other and we meet each other because we're the same and we're not alone. Thank you. I'll see you next time.